We live in this world that just seems to reward being loud, right? From day one, we're taught that confidence has to shout, that success has to be flashy, and that your value, well, your value is measured in likes and shares. But what if all of that is just wrong? What if the real things that drive intelligence and discipline and genuine worth are actually silent? Okay, so let's really dive into this. Let's decode the hidden power of a quiet life.
And, a huge insight from psychology tells us we have to start right here. Because the things that truly hold us back, they're not usually these big, dramatic failures. Nope. More often than not, it's the quiet stuff, the little things we actively choose to ignore day in and day out.
And this is what some people call the silent collapse. It's not one big event that ruins everything. It's more like a slow leak. It's this collection of tiny, seemingly harmless habits, these negative thought loops, these draining emotions that just quietly, slowly erode your mental strength over time. And honestly, this is the real reason so many of us feel stuck.
All right, let's start with the first and probably the loudest myth of them all: confidence. We have this tendency to confuse the performance of certainty with the quiet reality of, actual intelligence.
I mean, we've all met this person, right? They argue with just total certainty. They're absolutely convinced they're right. They speak with all this conviction, but when you listen closely, the logic just isn't there. Well, it turns out there's a really fascinating psychological reason for this whole phenomenon.
It's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And honestly, this just perfectly illustrates why loudness can be so misleading. You see, their confidence isn't a sign of competence at all. It's actually a symptom of their lack of awareness. They literally don't know enough to realize just how much they don't know.
And this is where we see the big difference. So loud confidence is usually really rigid. It sees the world in black and white. But quiet confidence, that comes from something called intellectual humility. Really smart people, they're often more self-critical, they're more doubtful, and it's precisely because they are aware of just how complex things are. They know how much they don't know. And that self-awareness, that's the real engine of growth.
So think about these behaviors. Behaviors that society might label as, being shy or withdrawn or maybe even rebellious. They're actually the hallmarks of a much deeper mind. Thinking before you speak isn't a weakness, it's cognitive restraint. Enjoying your own company isn't antisocial, it's an absolute requirement for deep thought. These aren't flaws, not at all. They're quiet strengths.
Okay, so how does this whole idea translate into our actions? See, we've all been sold this myth that to take action, you need this loud, hyped-up motivation. But the reality? The reality is so much quieter and way more effective.
I mean, just think about it for a second. How many hours have you or I spent watching videos about how to be more productive, only to get to the end of the day and realize you've produced absolutely nothing? Look, this isn't some personal failure. Your brain is actually being tricked.
Psychologists have a name for this. It's the dopamine trap. See, your brain gets this little hit of dopamine before you even click play on the video. It comes from the promise, the anticipation that maybe this is the video that's going to change everything. But it's just an illusion. You're not actually learning. It's a form of escape, a way of hiding from the discomfort of a life you haven't really started living yet.
And this gets to the absolute heart of it. Loud action, that's the kind that waits for motivation. It needs to feel ready to start. But quiet action, that's totally different. It builds automatic systems. It completely takes emotion out of the equation. It's not about asking yourself, do I feel like it today? It's just, it's time, so I'm doing it. That's called automaticity, and it is the true foundation of real discipline.
And really, that's the ultimate goal, isn't it? It's not about the hype. It's not about posting your grind online for everyone to see. It's about that quiet, relentless, day in, day out consistency that happens when nobody is watching and nobody is clapping. That is when you truly become unstoppable. Okay, this brings us to our final big idea, where we get our sense of value. Is it something we perform for other people, or is it something we build and cultivate deep inside ourselves?
It's such a modern paradox, isn't it? In a world that is just obsessed with oversharing every little thing, being quiet, it almost feels like a statement. But a statement of what, exactly? Well, psychology actually has a very clear answer for us. So, social media platforms, they are literally designed to work like psychological slot machines. It's the unpredictable nature of the rewards, the likes, the comments, the shares. You never know when you're going to get one. That's called variable reward reinforcement, and it keeps your brain hooked, constantly pulling that lever, hoping for another little hit of validation.
And this whole system creates what we could call loud value, where your sense of worth is completely tied to how well you perform for an audience. But the alternative, quiet value, that comes from something psychologists call self-concept clarity. And what that means is having a stable internal sense of who you are, one that doesn't need constant external proof. You just know you matter, even when no one is watching.
And when that happens, wow, it's a profound shift. Deciding to post less, or even deleting social media entirely, that's not hiding. It's an evolution. It means your real sense of self has become more important, more real to you than your online persona. All of a sudden, privacy becomes a total power move.
Okay, so let's pull all of this together. What if these quiet traits we've been talking about, humility, building systems for action, having that internal validation, what if they aren't just alternatives to the loud way? What if they're actual superpowers?
Just think about it. In a world that is absolutely addicted to distraction, your ability to think deeply, that's a massive strength. In a world that's always chasing the next motivational high, your capacity for quiet, boring consistency is a strength. And in a world that is desperate for validation, having a self-contained sense of worth, that is a serious strength. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise.
So, what does the path to tapping into this quiet power actually look like? Well, it seems to boil down to about 3 steps. First, just observe. Observe your own patterns. Notice where all the noise is coming from, but do it without judging yourself. Second, you have to intentionally detach from that constant need for external approval. And third, just focus on building 1, maybe 2, quiet, automatic systems that actually serve your real long-term goals.
And really, that's the ultimate takeaway here. True, quiet power, it isn't about competing. It's not about being better than anyone else. It's about becoming so solid in who you are that you no longer feel that burning need to prove it to anybody. It doesn't have to be loud. It just